You've probably already seen like a million videos about caulking, but this is the last one you're ever gonna need to see. I'm Travis and this is how I do things, and I'm gonna show you how to caulk like a pro. While I do intend this video to be all inclusive, there is a chance I may miss one or two awesome tips. If I do, please leave those in the comments so everybody else can see them. Choosing the right caulk is absolutely critical. If you do not use the right caulk, it will not hold up over time. There are many types of caulk. There's color caulk, and even caulk with sand in it to match grout when tiling. Silicone caulk is ideal for wet areas like bathrooms and kitchens. It's very flexible and it's great at repelling water. Acrylic latex caulk is what you typically use for trim on the interior of your home. It's paintable, inexpensive, and cleans up easily with water. Polyurethane caulk is super durable, paintable, and stays flexible. It's typically used for sealing joints around windows and cracks in concrete. Butyl rubber caulk is tough against the elements and is mostly used on siding, gutters, and flashing. If you're working in an area that already has caulk, be sure to remove that first. There's a lot of tools available to do this. If the caulk you're trying to remove is silicone, it may have hardened over time, so you may want to soften it first with some mineral spirits, vinegar, caulk remover, or heat. To use a caulking tool, you just push or pull the tool along the caulk line. To remove any excess caulking, you can either use a razor blade or a plastic scraper. I like using the plastic scraper because it's less likely to scratch the surface. Be sure there's no dust or debris on the surface. You can vacuum it off or use a brush. If you're working in a bathroom or a kitchen with silicone caulk, you may want to wipe down the surface with some alcohol. If you don't properly prep your surfaces before caulking, you're more than likely going to have issues with adhesion at some point in the future. There are several types of caulking guns to choose from. First, you can choose between a battery-powered one or a manual. The battery-powered ones are great for large projects because they prevent hand fatigue, but you're going to pay a lot for that luxury. I'm cheap, so I pretty much always use a manual caulk gun. All you do is squeeze the lever and caulk comes out. Plus, you get a pretty good hand workout. And from that point on, it's just about the specs and features that you want for your project. For example, you can pick guns with different thrust ratios, anywhere from 3:1 for thin caulking and 28:1 for very thick caulking. For most projects around the house, a 10:1 thrust ratio works great. Almost all of them come with a built-in cutter to cut the tip. Whatever caulk gun you choose, be sure it is a drip-free or dripless gun. It pulls the plunger back a little after you release the lever instead of keeping pressure on the caulk. This stops the caulk from coming out of the tube when you release the lever instead of just continuing to ooze out. This one has a nice comfortable grip and is not expensive. If you're interested, I put a link down below. You're more than likely going to be using your caulk gun at an angle like this. Pay attention to that angle and cut the tip to match to help get a smoother bead. However, a 90-degree angle can be better in corners. Cut a little at a time until you get the hole the size that you want. In my experience, a smaller hole is usually a little bit better than a larger hole. If you really want to take it to the next level, you can also shape the side of the nozzle to match the shape of the gap that you're caulking. You can do this by putting a piece of sandpaper in the joint like this and then running the tip of the nozzle across it a few times. Keep in mind that shaping the tip like this may reduce the size of the bead a little bit, but that's fine in most cases. Another great tip that I picked up from the Funny Carpenter, no pun intended, is to put a little line on the tip of the nozzle like this. It just sort of helps keep the tube aligned properly with the gap as you're caulking so you can take advantage of this beveled cut that you put on the end. If for any reason by the end of my video you don't feel like you know everything there is to know about caulking, head over to his channel and check out some of his content. He's got some great stuff over there. Don't forget to puncture the membrane. Most caulk guns will have a tool on the side to do this. Typically, if the hole is about the right size, the tool will just barely fit in. Giggity. Now that the tip is cut, simply load the caulk tube into the gun like this and you're ready to go. To begin, put the nozzle in the crack like this. You can rotate the tube in the gun if needed to get your angle cut to align with the angle you're holding the gun. Pull the tip smoothly across the surface. In most cases, an 1/8 inch bead of caulk is perfect. There are some cases where you need a little bit thicker bead. For me, that's usually outdoors. Stay nice and steady and adjust the speed or flow as needed. This part will take a little practice. When you see the caulk building up on the tip of the nozzle, wipe it off or else it'll drag across the fresh caulk line. Don't use too much. You can always add more with another pass. It's a lot more work to clean up excess caulk, plus it wastes a lot of caulk. I have textured walls inside my home, and it's especially hard to clean too much caulking off of them, so it's very important that I use my caulking sparingly. If you're very careful, you should be able to get a nice clean caulk line. If you're struggling to get a clean line, try using masking tape about 1/8 inch from the gap to be caulked, and then pull it off while the caulk is still wet. This is especially helpful with silicone caulking because it is very sticky and hard to clean up. While I did get great results using the masking tape, it took a lot longer, and masking tape isn't cheap, so I tend to not use this technique very often. There are all sorts of tools that you can use to smooth your caulk line, but I pretty much always just end up using one of my fingers. And the best thing about using your fingers is there's a few different sizes to choose from. My index finger is pretty much my go-to when smoothing caulk, but when I want a really tight caulk line, I go to the pinky. I've seen some people spray the caulk line with either soapy water or alcohol before smoothing it out, and while it seems to work well at first, it can affect the adhesion of the caulk. If you're working with latex-based caulking, get a small bucket of water and dip your finger in. If you're working with silicone caulk, dip your finger in some alcohol. Then just smoothly run your finger over the caulk line with even pressure. Wipe your finger off and re-wet as needed. Remove any excess caulk before it dries with a damp towel or rag. If you're working with silicone caulk, you may need to use a little alcohol. If you still have some caulk left when you're all done, you can plug the end with a nail, wire nut, masking tape, or even a store-bought device. I put a link to some of the options you can buy down below. Now just let your caulk dry for a day or so. Be sure it's fully dry before painting it or getting it wet. Now you're ready to do some serious caulking. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button and then subscribe to my channel so you don't miss all my other tips like this. We'll see you guys.